Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Cobern, and today's episode we're doing AJ Green versus Julio Jones.
There can be only one.
And this was a question submitted by Blasphemous HDTV3 M, and he's asked a ton of questions. I will get to as many of those questions as possible. I'm a one-man person, so I'm trying to answer as many questions as possible. And this was a question he submitted. He said AJ Green versus Julio Jones, and he actually commented twice about this. So I heard you first time. But yeah, I figure, you know what? Let's do this. This, of course, was one of the hottest debated topics in that draft. You know, who's better, AJ Green, Julio Jones? Who's gonna win out? All that kind of stuff. And it's a very interesting battle to talk about, at least in terms of analytics, because there's two prevailing thoughts here. Both these guys pretty much had identical production. Both these guys, there was a clear difference in terms of athleticism, but one guy, and I won't really name him yet, but one guy had a more consistent career up to this point versus another guy who's just gotten super hot in the last 3 seasons straight. So it's going to be very interesting in terms of this battle, because these are two guys who, coming out, you would not expect one guy to be more consistent than the other guy, I guess. So in terms of heights and stuff like that. So but how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to do this with analytics. In terms of comparisons, we're going to look at what the production was, and in terms of production, I look at passing yardage, market share, production, where you take an individual statistic, at least passing yardage, and you divide it by the team total yardage. So if a wide receiver had 1,000 yards, you divide that by the team total yardage, which would be like 4,000. Then that wide receiver had 25% passing yardage, market share, production. You take that number, you compare it to every single wide receiver since the 1969 NFL draft class, and then boom, you have a way to compare. You have a way to look at that production they put up and then see if it went into the 5-time All-Pro level, the 3-time All-Pro level, the 3-time Pro Bowl level, and of course the long-term starter level. So you get to see what their production was at college and then be able to see, if their production could get better or worse, all that kind of stuff. And of course athleticism data, which takes into account the explosive lower body strength score, speed score, and flexibility score. Explosive lower body strength takes into account the vertical and the broad jump measured against mass density. The speed score takes into account the 40-yard dash measured against mass density. And then the flexibility score takes into account the short shuttle / recone measured against mass density. With all that stuff out of the way, let's get to the battle, guys. Let's start with AJ Green in terms of what his production looked like coming out of college, what his athleticism looked like coming out of college, and of course what his NFL production looks like. So starting out with AJ Green, when it comes to his passing yardage market share production, he had an 89 overall score. Compared to past performers, he hit the 5-time All-Pro level, the 3-time All-Pro level, the 3-time Pro Bowl level, and even the long-term starter level, which shouldn't be surprising at this point in his career, but he definitely was a guy that coming out of college hit at least the 5-time All-Pro level, which is the god-tier level when it comes to wide receiver production. That's where guys like Jerry Rice, Chris Carter, Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, all the great wide receivers you could think of end up in that 85 or higher range, when it comes to their production. So he was very good in terms of his passing yardage market share production. When it comes to his athleticism, he had a 65.35 explosive lower body strength score, a 71.46 speed score, and a 72.94 flexibility score. He wasn't like an amazing athlete overall, like he wasn't like a top 10 percentile type of athlete, but he had above average marks in every single mark. And when it comes to the wide receiver position, based on all the data that I've seen and analyzed and looked at since the 1999 NFL draft class, to be a great wide receiver, you don't necessarily need to have elite athleticism traits across the board. Like, you don't have to be a 90-plus percentile athlete in every single metric. You don't have to be like a spark crazy madman when it comes to your athleticism. But you do have to have at least some marks that are above average, at least 54 or higher. Every single, for the most part, the majority of multiple All-Pro wide receivers and multiple Pro Bowl wide receivers, with the exception of Chad Johnson. Other than Chad Johnson, every single one of those guys had at least one athleticism mark that was a 54 or higher in terms of their athleticism profile. So they either had a athleticism score of explosiveness that was 54 or higher, speed that was 54 or higher, or flexibility that was 54 or higher. And in AJ Green's case, he hit the explosion marks, he hit the speed marks and the flexibility marks. So he was a above average athlete across the board, and based on that, you would have concluded that yes, this is a guy with the potential to be a multiple All-Pro and multiple Pro Bowl player. And so far in his career, he's had a very, very good, consistently dominant career when it comes to his production. He had a 94.32 score in 2011. His best career season ever in terms of his market share production was 2012, with a 98.86 score. He, of course, in 2013, very high, 2014, very high, 2015, 90 percentile, and then in 2016, that was the only year where he had a dip in his production with only 84.79 out of 100. So for the majority of his career, from 2011 to 2015, he was hanging out in the 90 percentile or higher, and then in 2016, he just had a dip. So he's been a very good, in terms of his production at the NFL level, he's been elite from the very beginning to 2015. He's been elite across the board, and he's never really had a season where he was below average at all up to this point. So he's had a very good start to his career from an NFL perspective. But how does Julio Jones look? So let's get to Julio Jones in terms of how he looks at the college level, and of course what he looks like at the NFL level. So in terms of Julio Jones's production, he had a 90 passing yardage market share production score, which of course is 1 point higher than AJ Green. And you may hold that against AJ Green, but again, from a statistical standpoint, scoring a 90 versus an 89 is statistically like there's, it doesn't really matter. Like it's within the margin of error, if you will. So 90 and 89, even though 90 technically is higher than 89, it's still pretty much they're both even when it comes to their production. Julio Jones hit multiple All-Pro production, as did AJ Green hit multiple All-Pro production in terms of what they looked like coming out of college. So the bottom line is Julio Jones had very good college production when it comes to his overall college, market share. In terms of his athleticism, this is where he pretty much does beat AJ Green. Julio Jones had a 97.93 explosive lower body strength score, a 98.63 speed score, and a 97.75 flexibility score. Those are amazing marks. There's no other way around it. He pretty much was a god tier wide receiver, one of the most athletic wide receivers to roam the NFL in a while. But as I already stated before, you don't need to have elite athleticism across the board to be an elite wide receiver. You just need to have one athleticism trait that is, better than everybody else. It doesn't hurt Julio Jones that he has this amazing amount of athleticism, but it does kind of, the case, it makes him look better. If you want to go with athleticism, you can go with it. You can call this a win for Julio Jones. I can technically call it a win for him, but honestly, I just think it's kind of a wash because AJ Green hit All-Pro athleticism marks and Julio Jones hit All-Pro athleticism marks, so it's kind of a wash in terms of both of them, based on how I view things. But if you want to give the athleticism marks to Julio Jones, you can definitely do that, and I would not disagree with you if you did. And I think the big difference between the two, realistically, is production. When it comes to Julio Jones, he's not quite had the career that AJ Green has had. Julio Jones, at the very beginning of his career, was a very good wide receiver. Had an 82.81 score as a rookie, which doesn't quite hit AJ Green level, but still was very good for a rookie wide receiver. 2012, he had an 88.40 score, which is pretty decent, but not necessarily AJ Green level again. 2013, his production kind of dipped a bit, and that was because of injury. Basically injuries kind of took him out that season. But then he just became one of the hottest wide receivers ever. From 2014 to 2016, he's by far been one of the most productive, if not the most productive wide receiver in the NFL for 3 straight seasons. He's gotten hot, and he's only gotten hotter in the last 3 seasons, which is not something you can say of AJ Green. AJ Green has definitely been very productive throughout his entire career up to this point, consistently placing in the 90 percentile or higher. But AJ Green, at least in the last 3 seasons, has had god tier level production, from 2014 to 2016, and especially 2015, with a 99.74 overall score, which is by far one of the highest scores for a wide receiver in a very long time in terms of his production. So ultimately, Julio Jones has had a great college career, great athleticism, more athleticism than A.J. Green, and his NFL career hasn't quite been A.J. Green in terms of being so as prolific as A.J. Green up to this point, but Julio Jones has had higher highs than A.J. Green has had up to this point in Julio Jones' career. So ultimately, who wins this analytics battle? Man, I don't like this battle. It's so close, guys. But if I really have to give a winner in this battle, I have to give it to AJ Green. And I know there's Atlanta fans that are going to go crazy. And believe me, don't get me wrong. Julio Jones may continue to put up this type of production in the future. Like it's very possible. He's proven so far to be one of the most prolific wide receivers in the last 3 seasons. But AJ Green has been one of the most prolific wide receivers from 2011 to 2015. For 5 straight seasons, Julio Jones put up 90 percentile or higher wide receiver production. 5 straight seasons. Julio Jones has not done that in his entire career. 2011 didn't quite do that. 2012 didn't quite do that. 2013 was ended shortly because of injury. And then he finally went off like crazy in 2014, 2015, and 2016. And because of that, I just have to give it to A.J. Green. Coming out of college, as a stats guy, they were virtually identical in college in terms of their market share production. In terms of their athleticism, Julio Jones is a better athlete. I'll give it to Julio Jones. He's a tremendous athlete overall. He is an elite level athlete. But when it comes to the wide receiver position, you don't need to be an elite wide receiver to be. You don't have to have elite athleticism across the board to be an elite wide receiver. You just need to have some athleticism traits that are above average everybody else. And in that manner, they're equal. Even though Julio Jones is definitely a 90 percentile overall athlete in every single facet, the fact is you don't need to be 90 percentile overall athlete to be a multiple All-Pro or Pro Bowl player. Essentially, you could be an Odell Beckham Jr. or you could be Antonio Brown, basically. So, is Odell Beckham Jr. better than Antonio Brown because Antonio Brown has less athleticism than Odell Beckham Jr.? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure you can really make that argument when the data doesn't really favor uber athletic guys. Like, sure, it's great to be an amazing overall athlete, and if you think that that's the thing that gives Julio Jones the advantage, that's you can do that. I'm not going to argue with you, but I just think purely from a numbers basis, there really isn't that significant of a difference. You could be a AJ Green level athlete and still be a All-Pro, Pro Bowl, or even better wide receiver than AJ Green, even though you don't have amazing athleticism, at least 90 percentile over athleticism. You do have above average athleticism. And then, of course, it brings to the NFL careers. To me, the NFL career up to this point is what gives A.J. Green the win. Because if you just look at his NFL career, he's consistently been a 90 percentile or higher producer from 2011 to 2015. And even though 2016 was kind of a downer year, he's not had as many downer years as Julio Jones has had in his career. Some of them were injury-stricken, but still. I think that when you look at A.J. Green and his entire career, his entire body of work at the NFL level, and you look at his production at the college level and say it's a wash, you look at his athleticism and you say it's a wash, at least with me, in terms of how I view data, then you would look at the NFL production, and based on the data, I'd go with A.J. Green. Now, who has the more upside? That's a different discussion, because if you're just talking about upside, obviously Julio Jones is more upside. He's had 3 seasons in a row where he's consistently been extremely from 2014 to 2016, he's been one of the most prolific, one of the most dominant wide receivers for 3 straight seasons. And of course has much more athleticism than A.J. Green. So technically you could say that who has the most upside, Julio Jones has that. Who could have a much better career based on their upside? Julio Jones could definitely do that. But the guy who's been more consistent, he's been more consistently elite in his entire career, who has virtually the same amount of production, virtually similar, hits all the marks you need to hit in terms of all-pro athleticism in AJ Green. I think that AJ Green is the guy that wins this one. But again, let me know in the comments below. Who do you think wins this analytics battle? I mean, it's really close. I can't really call it a tie. I could do that if I wanted to, but I don't want to call too many ties. So I'm giving this AJ Green based on what he's done in the NFL. But let me know, who do you think is the winner here? Do you think that Julio Jones obviously wins because he has much better athleticism and has put up 3 straight crazy seasons, in 2014 and 2016? Or do you think that AJ Green should win this one because AJ Green has just been more consistently elite throughout his entire NFL career versus Julio Jones, who got super, super hot in the last 3 seasons? So let me know in the comment section below. Of course, my name is James Cobern. You can find my work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. Also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well with anybody that you know, and I will talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.